Once, he was the most powerful man in England, a monarch of unmatched ambition, unmatched appetite, both for power and for pleasure. He ruled with iron authority, changed the course of religious history, and left a trail of broken vows, broken alliances, and broken bodies. But in the end, all that power, all that glory, could not save him from the slow, putrid decay of his own flesh. This is the story of King Henry VIII, the king who rotted alive. Henry Tudor was never meant to be king. Born the second son of Henry VII, his older brother Arthur was destined for the throne. But fate intervened. In 1502, Prince Arthur died suddenly, leaving the 11-year-old Henry as heir apparent. He was intelligent, athletic, charismatic, a golden prince. When he ascended the throne in 1509 at just 17 years old, England rejoiced. A new era had begun. But no one could have imagined how dark that era would become. At the beginning of his reign, Henry was admired across Europe. He was tall, strong, and handsome. He was a gifted musician, a skilled juicer, and a devout Catholic. The people adored him. The court feared him. But time changes all things, and kings most of all. Henry's legacy is often defined by his 6 wives. Divorced, beheaded, died. Divorced, beheaded, survived. Behind that infamous rhyme lies a deeper story of obsession, paranoia, and bloodshed. He broke from the Roman Catholic Church just to annul his first marriage to Catherine of Aragon. He executed 2 of his wives. He dissolved monasteries, beheaded friends, burned heretics. The king who had once been the embodiment of Renaissance virtue had become a tyrant, and his body changed with him. In his youth, Henry had been an athlete. He loved hunting, jousting, and dancing. But a catastrophic jousting accident in 1536 would mark the beginning of his physical decline. A horse crashed onto him, crushing his leg. The injury never healed. His leg became ulcerated, swollen, and infected, oozing pus reeking of rot. Doctors attempted to treat it with primitive methods, often making things worse. The wound became a permanent feature of the king's body and of his temper. Unable to exercise, Henry grew obese. By the end of his life, he reportedly weighed over 400 pounds. His waist measured over 54 inches. He was so heavy he had to be carried in a mechanical chair. A special hoist was installed to lift him into bed. Servants struggled to move him. The once glorious prince had become a bloated shadow of his former self. But the leg was only the beginning. Inside his body, worse things were festering. Chronic infections, gout, suspected type 2 diabetes, possibly Cushing's disease, syphilis, heart disease. The king was in constant pain. His mood was volatile. He flew into rages, executed old friends, distrusted even his closest advisors. And all the while, his body continued to rot. The ulcer on his leg emitted a foul stench. Those who tended to him wore masks soaked in herbs to avoid vomiting. It leaked fluid constantly. At times, it had to be lanced, and thick yellow pus would pour out. The wound was so grotesque that even hardened physicians recoiled from it. Henry's chamber was filled with the smell of rotting flesh. His face became puffy and red. His eyes sunken. His breath labored. He sweated constantly. His body was breaking down, and he knew it. He became increasingly obsessed with death, with the legitimacy of his heirs, with the security of his realm. He trusted no one. He ordered more executions. Even those who had once been indispensable to him were not safe. In 1547, the end came. Henry had drafted multiple versions of his will, paranoid about succession. He named his son Edward as heir, followed by Mary and Elizabeth. But as the king lay dying, his leg was worse than ever, gangrenous, swollen, blackened. The stench was unbearable. Those who tended to him had to change the wrappings multiple times a day. Some records suggest that maggots infested the wound, feasting on the dead tissue. It was as if death had already begun its work, while Henry still breathed. In his final days, Henry was barely conscious. His speech was slurred. He was bloated beyond recognition. His liver was likely failing. His kidneys possibly shut down. Fluid built up in his abdomen. His heart struggled to keep pumping. And still, the wound on his leg festered, refusing to close, refusing to let him die in peace. Legend says that when the physicians finally declared him dead on January 28, 1547, the body of Henry VIII was so full of noxious gases and decay that it exploded in its coffin. That tale may be apocryphal, but it captures the essence of his end. A man who had ruled with the power of a god died like a man consumed by pestilence. And in a way, he had been. Henry's death was not swift. It was not glorious. It was not befitting a king. It was the slow unraveling of a life lived in excess. Excess of power, excess of food, excess of ego. His body became a prison, and finally, a tomb. His own flesh betrayed him, turning against him. It did not simply die, it rotted. He was buried in St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle, next to his third wife, Jane Seymour, the only one of his 6 wives who gave him a male heir. No grand mausoleum was built. No towering monument. Just a simple tomb, beneath the floor, marked only by a modest slab of stone. Time has not been kind to Henry's memory. Historians debate his legacy. Was he a visionary reformer or a bloodthirsty tyrant? A political genius or a paranoid despot? One truth remains. His death mirrored his life. Violent, grotesque, tragic. The man who had once declared himself the supreme head of the Church of England, who had reshaped a nation, who had ruled with terrifying force, ended as a bloated corpse, writhing in pain, devoured from within. Perhaps no other monarch in history so fully embodied the corruption of absolute power. And perhaps no other monarch died in a manner so chillingly symbolic. The king who tore England apart was himself torn apart from within. Long after his death, the image of Henry's body, putrid, swollen, leaking, and decomposing, haunted those who remembered him. It served as a warning, a reminder that even kings, even the mightiest rulers, cannot escape the judgment of flesh and time. He was Henry VIII, King of England, husband of 6, father of 3, slayer of thousands, and in the end, just another man, devoured by the rot he could not escape.